from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on AgDay, the president promising to strike better deals on trade, and Korea is next.
He may not want all that significant changes.
But it's the beef industry who could be in jeopardy. As tariffs on frozen beef to Japan spiked, overall beef shipments are holding strong.
Didn't do anything to our fresh and chilled beef going into Japan.
In agribusiness, as the Dow races past new highs, ag commodities stay sluggish.
First, you start with basis improvement, okay? And then you look to bull spreads, okay? And then you get flat price.
And it's an unconventional car putting a new spin on parking.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan in for Clinton Griffiths. The fate of major trade deals continues to be a pain point for U.S. agriculture, but the president continuing to follow through on a campaign promise in the new year to take a tougher stance on trade. Negotiations of the United States-Korea Free Trade Agreements, or KORUS, are kicking off Friday. Michael Beeman, assistant U.S. trade representative for Japan and Korea, led the discussions. Now, the administration making it clear the trade deficit is a major concern with Korea. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer says the U.S. is aiming to knock tariffs on ag goods down to zero, something that will be tough to accomplish. But he thinks the administration is aiming for minor changes to the five-year-old deal, not a complete overhaul.
You can always tweak, and that's why I think it's of note, too. He has not notified, he being Trump, has not notified Congress of negotiating goals relative to the TPA, fast track. That tells me he may not want all that significant changes, at least unless he starts notifying Congress.
Now, Wiesmeyer says South Korea is hungry to import more energy, and that could come in the form of liquefied natural gas from the U.S. But it's Korea that's already a strong market for ag, as Korea is the fifth largest buyer of U.S. ag goods, totaling $6.2 billion in 2016. And beef is at the top of that list. National Cattlemen's Beef Association says the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement eliminates Korea's 40% tariff on U.S. beef imports over time and is already the United States' second largest export market, totaling $1 billion annually. Now, the beef industry says it has a competitive edge it doesn't want to see jeopardized during trade talks.
If we were to go back to 40% today, we would be at a severe disadvantage compared to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, who have all reached free trade agreements with South Korea since that time.
Japan is another top buyer of beef. However, the country slapped on a lofty tariff last summer, which will continue through March on some beef products. And it's something U.S. producers are still fighting. The tariff worried the beef industry that exports to Japan would come to a halt. Betsy Gibbon reports where exports are now.
U.S. frozen beef products are still shipping to Japan, but fresh and chilled beef appears to be picking up the slack.
Didn't do anything to our fresh and chilled beef going into Japan.
Back in August, Japan implemented a safeguard tariff on U.S. frozen beef products, raising tariffs from 38.5% to 50%. The tariffs on fresh and chilled beef did not rise, and it's now leading exports.
Our chilled beef exports to Japan were already driving growth for this year. They're up at a rate of about 40% in volume, 43% in value.
Even though frozen is exporting better than industry leaders expected, it's still dropping year over year due to the tariff. Nalifka says in 2015, frozen U.S. beef accounted for 56% of total U.S. beef exported to Japan. That figure fell to 47% in 2016. January through October of 2017, it fell even further to 43%.
On January through October of this year, our fresh is accounting for about 57% of total beef, U.S. beef going into Japan. So we've increased the fresh, obviously, and the value of that fresh. I think this is a pretty significant number.
However, Japan is still showing it's a loyal customer with an appetite. USMEF says Japan is one of the top buyers for total U.S. beef. Volume for October climbing 19% from a year ago, and values are up 23%.
We want to caution people not to make too much of the fact that exports have remained high over the past couple of months that we have data for, because we do think that this is still a very much a trade disrupting event and something that we need to rectify with Japan.
Japan is able to implement the action because the country introduced safeguard tariffs in 1994 under the World Trade Organization. The country can raise tariffs when imports rise more than 17% year on year in any given quarter from all countries.
The problem with that whole thing was the fact that, we've had that agreement in place for quite a few years and have never tried to change it.
With a growing U.S. beef herd, the industry hopes more tariffs will not impact trade going forward.
However, there's a concern, though, that Japan also has a safeguard on chilled imports, and that could be triggered at some point. But if there's too much of a shift from frozen to chilled product, then there's a danger that you're going to trigger that separate safeguard. It would be for a different time period.
Something to watch as 2018 begins. Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Thanks, Betsy. Now, the U.S. could still prevent a tariff in the future with a multilateral or bilateral trade agreement, but USMEF says there are no active talks with Japan on a bilateral agreement today. The president's stance on China becoming even more stringent. Before the new year, he declared China as a competitor. But it's a market that consumes 60% of U.S. soy and has a growing appetite for U.S. beef. In June, the U.S. started shipping beef to China for the first time in 14 years. Chinese buys have been slow, buying less than 1% of U.S. beef exports in September. But it's a market that is expected to grow as U.S. suppliers obtain proper USDA verifications to supply to China. Well, producers in farm country hope to see a warm-up after the Arctic blast this week. I'm right there with them. Mike Hoffman joins us now with an update. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Tyne. Mike Weisseth in Zumbrota, Minnesota, sending us this picture of milking cows earlier this week when the temperature was -15. The parlor fogged up fast when the doors opened and let the cows in and out. Chad Ingalls over in Randalia, Iowa, says it's too cold to hang around outside. That's why this future farmer is inside, watching the pigs grow. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see the northeastern storm is going to cause lots of wind in that part of the country, eastern Great Lakes as well, all the way down into the middle of the Atlantic states, and you can see the rest of the country really not too bad. As we head into the day tomorrow, then we'll begin to see a little bit more wind coming into the northern plains, eastern Dakotas, into Minnesota as we head through the midday and afternoon hours. But overall, not too bad across a good chunk of the country. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Still to come, the Dow continues on its impressive run, hitting a new record. We'll tell you what's fueling the bullish run. And what does it take to move ag commodity markets? Bob Utterback sits down with Clinton Griffiths. Plus, it's a car that can be perched on your worktop, a portable car as we head in the country. In agribusiness, the Dow kicking off the new year by breaking new records. The Dow blew past the 25,000 mark Thursday for the first time ever. Other indexes also hitting new highs. The momentum driven by a strong private jobs report and growth in major economies. The minutes from the latest Federal Reserve meeting where officials decided to raise interest rates again, also adding to the bullish trade. And it's that momentum that agriculture hopes will spill over into ag economies next. But some analysts say a climbing Dow does not guarantee the commodity markets will follow.
I don't think there's many doctors and lawyers anymore sitting around buying corn, wheat, and beans. And all the money's in stock market. History tells us at some point it'll correct. How much and when, that's the million-dollar question.
Well, if it's not momentum from the stock market, what does move the ag commodity markets? Clinton Griffiths and Bob Utterback discuss in this morning's analysis.
Bob Utterback Marketing, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. All right, Bob, let's talk a little bit of structure here and go through ways that our market could move, because we'd like it to move at some point.
Right. Old grain trader told me back when I was starting in the business, he says, you start with basis improvement.
Okay.
And then you look to bull spreads.
Okay.
And then you get flat price.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So the cash pushes the board doesn't push cash.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And that's structurally how it is. Now, there is, some people would argue, say that structure is breaking down, but fundamentally, the board is a function of the cash market. Now, as the trading funds, as the demise of the Chicago Board of Trade, open outcry, which I think is,
that's for another show, Bob. That's for another show.
As one guy says, it's like losing your wife, losing your dog, and losing your farm all in one day.
Yeah, right.
For a lot of the traders that went to that. But that process, but now we're into the big trading funds, the mathematical model fund trading funds. Mm-hmm. And they trade mathematically, and it's a relationship between us and other commodities, and it's the mathematical that are beyond my capability. I don't understand some of that stuff, but I know it's related still back to the basic fundamental of cash.
Right.
So when you, Mr. Producer, you got to say, how am I going to make a decision in this environment where the mathematical wizards are doing their thing and the computer models are doing the trading funds, and I keep on coming back to, you got to get from the market what is in your best interest, which is you're trying to lock in a profit.
Right.
So you can survive and operate. And I would argue, we're right now doing a study that we're going to release out in January, where we go back and do a historical, so we can review the history, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, of what basic USDA says farmers made. And if you look at history, except for the 2010-11 exceptions, $100 an acre over all cost is a high profit.
Okay.
So as you look forward right now, the deferred markets are offering very, very big carry. 2019 corn is almost 30 cents above 18, and 18 is 45 cents above 17. So the market is giving you big carry. So getting prepared to sell carry, I think, is an objective. Sell the back end, and then defend with a front end call on weather scare is a mantra that we'll be looking. I'll be talking now at the Louisville Farm Show about that particular strategy of how to implement a sell and defend market in a carrying charge structure market.
Yeah, looking at those long-term trends and what we can really expect.
And that's the lesson we learned from the 80s and 90s. Sell the carry, defend against the exception.
All right, appreciate it, Bob. Good advice. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
To talk with Bob one-on-one, call Utterback Marketing Services, toll free at 800-832-1488.
Ever wake up wondering what does today's weather have in store? Well, with Weather Updates, it delivers the local forecast right to your cell phone each morning to make preparing for the day easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
Back now with a check of weather, meteorologist Mike Hoffman. And Mike, I keep hearing this term thrown out on the East Coast, a bomb or bomb-o.
Bomb genesis, bomb cyclone.
Yeah, what does it mean?
It's a term that meteorologists have used behind the scenes for a long time. The media picked up on it and they decided to go with it. It means a rapidly expanding storm system. It explodes in strength, therefore the bomb reference.
So it's not incorrect. You just say it's getting too much attention right now.
Yeah, the media
picks
it. No. It's
Okay.
not anything new. This is just a rapidly developing storm. It's now already developed now. So
Okay, so now that you're off your soapbox.
yes, I am still on the soapbox, but that's okay. Let's go on to drought monitor. Actually, we've gotten some areas that have gotten drier across the southern plains into Louisiana, as you can see there. As we go back 4 weeks, though, you can see how that area was worse overall in Arkansas and some of the surrounding states, but not as large of an area. And so that's kind of a concern, even though it has gotten a little worse. As we go through the last 4 weeks over Arkansas, it has gotten better, I should have said. It's expanded in area. So we're starting to see dryness over into West Texas, western Oklahoma, down into Mississippi, Louisiana. And of course, the Southwest has been getting drier as well. It's extremely dry when you take a look at the topsoil moisture. There's the weather map. There's the storm system. Again, it's now just going to continue to be strong as it moves into eastern Canada and slowly weaken over time because it's getting into colder air. That cold air then behind it does come farther south. It's going to eventually go back into Florida. And we are getting some systems off the west coast for a change now. We're looking at some rain and mountain snows coming into the northwest and even northern and central California. Lake effect snow showers continue on into Saturday in the Great Lakes. but then that kind of wanes as we head through the day. Warm front for a change coming across the Plains states, producing a little bit of snow there into northern portions of Minnesota by tomorrow afternoon, and the storm system in the northeast completely gone by the end of Saturday, by the end of tomorrow. There's a look at the precipitation estimate past 24 hours. Almost all of it has been in the northeast, a little bit around the Great Lakes, and we're going to expand that area in the west coast area and into the northern and central Rockies. Snowfall, well, it's almost all been snow in the northeast. A lot of it, it's all now moving mainly into Canada, and we're going to see more and more coming into the central and northern Rockies. You can see high temperatures on the cold side, lows tonight below zero again, parts of the western Great Lakes into the northern plains. Highs tomorrow afternoon, more of the same. Very cold Great Lakes in the northeast and still chilly all the way into the southeast, all because of this big trough in the east. You can see it lets up a little bit. Another one kind of dives through the Great Lakes and northeast on Tuesday, lets up again. Another trough diving in later next week. So it's still a cold pattern, just not as cold. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. And take a look at Glasgow, Montana, a mix of sun and clouds, high temperature of 21 degrees. Shreveport, Louisiana, lots of sunshine and cool, high of 52. And finally, Akron, Ohio, very cold with a few snow flurries around, high around 5 degrees.
Thanks so much. Still to come, it may seem like a far cry until spring, but the days are dwindling to get your gear ready for planting. And it's an unconventional car putting a new spin on parking.
AgDay, brought to you by Alivo Seed Treatment from Bayer. Protect your soybeans from SDS and nematodes this season. Farm Journal College TV is brought to you by Instinct and N-Serve. Maximize every nitrogen application so your crops deliver the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com.
Well, it may be January and freezing out, and some of you may have more than a foot of snow on the ground, but it's never too early to start preparing for planting. Clinton Griffiths hits the field.
Missy, I guess first things first, if we're going to the field, we've got to set up our planter.
And that's what we want to talk about today, is really some infield planter setup things. Of course, first thing, you just need to evaluate how is your overall planter set up or outfitted in general.
Okay.
So are you running row cleaners, or do you have a no-till coulter on there? What are you running for your closing system? All those decisions should really be made off, what type of tillage system that you're in and the conditions you're typically planting under. So in a case where we're doing a lot of no-till, then we would look at running actually a no-till coulter in combination with a row cleaner.
Right, right.
In this case, we're out here in conventional tillage, so we want to make sure that coulter is off. We find that coulter likes to hairpin residue down in the trench otherwise.
Okay.
So in this case, we're just going to be running the floating row cleaners on this planter. And then closing wheels, again, going to depend on that tillage system. Here we're conventional tillage, so we have the standard 2 cast iron closing wheels with a drag chain behind. Pretty good standard option in a lot of cases for conventional tillage.
Of course, there's always other options, right? I mean, there's so many different things you can outfit with now.
Exactly, and I mean, if we're doing a lot of no-till, then that's where we get into maybe some more of the spike type options and different things like that. But you gotta realize whatever we're doing back there really has to coincide with what our tillage system is.
Thanks, Clinton and Missy. Still to come, one investor's quest to solve your parking nightmares in the country is next. The best inventors see a need and then come up with a solution. And for one young Bosnian inventor, he's created a solution for the crowded streets of our cities, and the result is a car you can fold up and wheel away like a suitcase. Check this out. It's not quite like a conventional car, but Elvis Ciro believes it could be the solution to the parking problem in so many big cities. It's called the Go City electric car, and it has a very small carbon footprint. He's hoping to develop his cheap prototype into a more sophisticated model.
The idea for a folding car was hanging around for a long time. But the moment I decided to build this is when I visited my relatives in Germany. I saw people driving bikes in all weather conditions, rain, snow, heat, and wind. Whatever the weather, people were riding bicycles. People were wearing these heavy raincoats in storms, but still riding bikes. So I thought to myself, I have to follow up on my idea to build a vehicle such as this.
With a full-time job, he could only work on his design in his free time, which he says prolonged the job. And he says as parking spots become harder to come by in big cities, the ability to simply fold up the car as you would fold up a suitcase helps someone take their vehicle into work with them. I carry enough stuff in each day. I don't know if I'll add a vehicle to the list. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're so glad you tuned in. For Betsy Gibbon and Mike Hoffman, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great day in Farm Country.